there, and welcome today to another Kerfuffle Podcast here, and we are delighted to have us from the other side of the world. We have Rik Rushton, best-selling author. We're going to get on to all of your achievements and wonderful things you've done, Rik. But before that, let me just introduce my co-host as well, David Mintz, because he gets very upset if I don't get into it. Sometimes I've gone half an hour without remembering him. So, David Mintz, welcome again.
It's nice to be here, Simon.
Okay, now it's not all about you. Let's get back to Rik straight away. Rik, thank you for joining us.
Well, I feel like I've got triple espresso and double decaf. It's really good. I'm loving the interaction, boys. It's great to be here. In all seriousness, thanks for the opportunity to be a part of the Kerfuffle podcast.
No problem at all. Actually, we'll get some merch over to you so you can be resplendent in this wonderful pink stuff. I don't think pink goes down quite as comfortably in Australia, is it? It's not.
Yeah, it's a little bit. We're not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's fair to say that it's probably not the go-to colour. It has to be.
That's why I always go down well.
Yeah,
so, Rik, you came on my radar. I've been lucky enough for many moons now to be able to go to ARIC, obviously the biggest, and I think it's fair to say the best show worldwide for real estate. There, I think it's fair to say you've spoken there a number of times. You've even presented it, haven't you, as well?
Yeah, so I've had the great fortune of going to the first that ever was in '97, and obviously up until the most recent of times, I went to everyone. Just in the last month, it couldn't happen because we were in lockdown in Melbourne. I'm from Melbourne, which is Australia's second biggest city, and so we were in a lockdown, so couldn't travel to the Gold Coast, which is in Queensland. It's about a 2-hour flight from Melbourne. So I missed this year, and obviously last year because I was speaking in China. And if you don't think one person can change the world, no one's obviously been to a wet market in Wuhan, right? So so I was speaking in China at the time, so I didn't get to go to that. That was the first ARIC I'd missed, to be brutally honest. So ARIC's an amazing conference, the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. It's sort of it's a staple in our sort of industry. And so I've had the great fortune of speaking at it a few times, hosting it a few times, and tending to have an inside sort of run at it. Meeting most of the speakers and being involved in bringing some of the speakers down under. So it's been an amazing conference for my career, for sure.
And you certainly stood out. I mean, without blowing any smoke, you certainly stood out on the stage that day. Obviously, it's over a series of days, and it was certainly one of the highlights there. But not just that, you've also spoken worldwide. You've spoken at the biggest one worldwide, as far as I'm aware, NAR. I've been lucky enough. I seem to make it to the NAR whenever it rotates to New Orleans. I don't know what it is about that particular city. Is it the Big Easy that they call it?
I think it's the Big Easy, yeah. And I like you, Simon, just miraculously get there when it's in Vegas. I don't know how that happened. It just sort of means, hey, if the invitation comes, you've got to go do it, right? But I've been fortunate to be Orlando in 2000, speaking there, and spoke in Orlando again in 2008. Vegas 2007, I think. So it's been a while since I've been able to speak at it, but that's ARIC on steroids, really. But it's still, I think they've all got their places, and I think what we all know about those conferences is that if you go there to learn, and you're open-minded, and you'll certainly fill your journals full of notes. I just go to those things, Simon and David, with a thought that who can I meet? Because who can I connect with? Because I've got an understanding that I'm one or two connections away to the next development of my career and the next opportunity for me to grow. And so I think those conferences are incredibly, great at just expanding your network, really.
And Rik, can I ask you, having sort of experienced things on both sides of the world, and those two major conferences there, if I had to ask you to pick which of these great countries known for their fine standards of estate agency, which would you rank number one in the world?
I think, clearly I'm certainly not going to be unbiased with my answer there, David. I mean, I just, the real estate facilities in America are very much generated towards being, dare I say, a facilitator of the transaction. There's MLS. It's a totally different setup in many respects. You get buyers, agents representing, one party. You've got, another agent representing the vendor. Everyone knows the price. There's no real skill in negotiating. It seems to be almost like, here's what the owner wants. This is what the buyer wants to offer. And we somehow meet in the middle and think that that's negotiating. I've got no doubts that, Australian real estate agents, specifically those in very competitive marketplaces where, we control the listing, the buyers come to us. There's a definite representation on behalf of the vendor, but there's an obligation to look after the buyer as well, and that ability to negotiate. On the Eastern Seaboard, auction is the predominant way to go, where you take the property to the marketplace, you set a date, and you let sort of the buyers compete. But I still think some of the best world-class negotiators are in non-auction markets, David, to be honest. And what they do incredibly well is that they're more the facilitators of the American ilk comfortably, but they also are the catalysts too. So they start to try and think of ways where they can create competition. They'll use very smart dialogue to sort of, bring in a sense of loss. At the moment, it's a 2-bedroom apartment. We've got 3 buyers interested. I can't see them all moving in together. Or, you've got the brochure, but someone else is going to get the keys if you leave your price point at that. There's a lot of that. Where in America, it's really the seller wants this, the buyer wants to offer that, and there's a bit of backwards and throwing, a bit of it. It's almost like Wimbledon, but with a lot of topspin lobs. There's no real heavy smashes or anything like that. So I'm clearly biased. I've spent 30 years in the Australian real estate marketplace, but I've also spent multiple times in America, both as a student learning and as an educator speaking there. And I've hung out with some of the best agents too, and I've seen them do their stuff. So. But clearly, I just think from a fully rounded scenario, there's no doubt in my mind that Australasian real estate agents are far more skillful, where American agents are better marketers of what they do. And I think they get off on being better marketers than the doers. I think Australian agents get off on being better doers than marketers, if that makes sense.
And do you think that maybe the English agents that you've come across fit comfortably somewhere in between?
Yeah, I do. I think that, I think in the UK is certainly, it's gone 180 degrees from my first interaction with an English estate agent from 30 years ago to present day. I mean, in them days, I'm talking way back in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, it was almost like, estate agents would sort of just hand keys to buyers and let them go and take themselves through a property because petrol was so dear and the commissions were so low, and they just didn't really have that sort of economies of scale to sort of, maybe be the sort of industry that is today. I see the UK agents being far more skillful today than they were back then. And, I think the biggest challenge all three face, whether, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, UK, US, Australia, every agent watching, listening, and being a part of this podcast is all going to suffer from the same challenge that we all face, which is most estate agents don't really know what part of the industry sector do they fit in. Are they skilled operators, or are they part of the service industry? Now, I reckon if you polled 100 of your subscribers, 99 would say that we're in the service industry. The challenge there is that, the fees we charge aren't really in line with a service type of orientation. I mean, an average fee in Australia is probably $15,000 to $20,000. And then there'll be advertising or media charges on top of that again. When was the last time anyone spends $25,000 on a service situation? It just doesn't happen. But you'll pay $25,000 to a lawyer to keep you out of jail. You'll pay $25,000 to your accountant to minimize your taxes. You'll pay $25,000 to a doctor to keep you alive. In Australia, we've had to go through that transition of being identified and valued for what we really truly bring to the actual transaction, which is our skill set. Service is a byproduct of what we do, but really what an estate agent in Australia wants to be judged for is their skill set that they bring to the table. And I think the analogy I've used for many years is it's a bit like when you take a flight. If you fly in a plane, the most skillful person on that plane is the pilot, old or young, male or female, or non-gender specific, as we have to be in 2021. But ultimately, the person or people in charge of the service on that flight are the cabin crew. Now, I think in your industry in the UK and our industry down under, we had to go from flying the plane and serving drinks and peanuts at the same time and saying, hang on, whoa, we're good at this. We'll have assistance if you want a team that can actually take care of, buying the bouquet of flowers to give to the clients for saying thanks for engaging with us, to set up the open for inspections and to do all of the, the service stuff that we are rated for, but we shouldn't be valued for, if that makes sense.
That makes a huge amount of sense. makes a huge amount of sense. That mindset, though, where you've obviously got a public over there that appreciate estate agents, and you've got estate agents that appreciate the value that they bring to the table. Here in the UK, things have improved in terms of us valuing ourselves more highly and trying to sort of improve the dialogue that we have with members of the public to convey to them the value that we do deliver. Australia doesn't seem to have that particular problem. You guys get it. You have vendors that will invest in additional marketing. What's the difference? Is it a personality type of thing, or?
Well, I think we've just been doing it for a little bit longer, but I think we've always had the same challenge. And when I first entered the industry, it was, most of the reason why Melbourne, Victoria, our state in Australia, was the auction capital of the world was because our fees were regulated by the government. It was $1,660 for the first 50,000 of the property's value and 2% on the balance. So if you sold a property for $100,000, $2,660 came into the agency to then be split up between the owner, the salesperson, or people, if there was a listing agent and a different selling agent. So there wasn't a lot of what you call fat on the bone. And if it was private treaty, the agents would actually have to pay for the media costs. If it was an auction, the vendors had to. So the only way a business could really thrive, let alone survive, was to push more properties towards auction. So we had to, probably out of necessity. And what's the old saying? Necessity is the mother of all skills. So we've had to do it.
Yeah.
And then I think what's happened, maybe more in a fast-paced way in Australia more than anything else, because I think, when I first started in the business, you almost had to be very much a very quiet estate agent, because you wouldn't want people to know that you're an estate agent, because the next thing that was like one rung, I think, either up or down from a used car salesman, depending on where it was going at any one moment in time, and politicians and the whole sort of thing. So I think what we've done, though, is we've made that shift by saying, hang on, we aren't used car salesmen. When was the last time you took a Ford, Escort back in them days, or, any car, a 10-year-old car, take it back to the marketplace and sell it for twice the amount that you bought it from the salesperson from? It just doesn't happen with automobiles, but that's what we were doing. And so we were trying to get our clientele to value us for what we do. We are, wealth creators, using real estate as the actual means of doing that. And so, I think it's the chicken or the egg. I think we drove that change as an industry from the inside out a little bit, and then the public sort of now picked that up. I think Americans understand that they're going to lose a lot of money to commission, 6%, as you said at the top there, Simon. I mean, Americans and it's a different marketplace again, because they don't have stamp duty challenges like we do down here when you purchase. What's going on with all that, isn't it? That's a pretty complex answer I'm giving you. I think we drove it. And I suspect that the marketplace got educated to that, and now we're valued for what we should be, which is, most people think they could do a better job than their estate agent probably 30 years ago. I don't think that's the case now. In fact, many of them would understand that we bring a skill set to the table that they just don't have. I mean, unless they're school teachers. School teachers tend to think they can do everything better than everybody, and when they think they could sell it better than us, I used to say to them, why wouldn't you just sell it yourself then? Well, we just don't have the time. Okay, well, isn't time management a skill? So we're bringing that to the table. That's interesting. And so long as people understand that we're in the skill sector and we bring value, we create wealth, we are negotiators, we're marketers to a degree. Once people understand that, because we're getting accountants, lawyers, surgeon type fees. So we may as well bring it. I mean, I don't know what sort of service you get from a UK doctor's clinic, but I can tell you down under, it's not great. I mean, if you've got a 12 o'clock appointment with your doctor, today, you rock up just before 12, you sort of, you greet the receptionist, you tell the receptionist you're there for your 12 o'clock appointment. Their answer is, oh, the doctor shouldn't be too long, take a seat, which is, how long is not too long in a doctor's surgery? I think if you've got a 12 o'clock appointment, if you're in front of the doctor before 12:30, I think you're doing well. What sort of service do you get at a doctor's surgery? Not much. I mean, you sit at a coffee table in every doctor's surgery everywhere in the world. What's on that coffee table? Outdated magazines, right? So there's not a lot of service there, but we're not going there for the service. We're going there for the skill set of the doctor. So I think real estate's kind of made that leap to, hey, we're the surgeon, but our support crew are very good at making sure you feel good through the whole experience. And I think that's the long-winded way of saying, I think we've driven that change a little bit from the inside out.
And Rik, I mean, looking at your shtick, the angle that you come from when you're looking at this whole performance coach side of things, would it be right to say that it's all about the empathy and the engagement and the communication, which is where you focus your time and adding value now? I mean, we're obviously behind you there. You've got the Power of Connection, which is obviously your best-selling book and everything else there. Just talk to me what that whole communication side means to you.
Yeah, well, I think that, early days, I got into the business, after a fairly big peak in the market, but interest rates were at 17.25%, which is huge by today's standards. I mean, to give you an understanding, if you've got a mortgage with a percentage of more than 3, you're probably refinancing at the moment. And we had regulated fees, and the market had kind of crashed a little bit. And when I got in, I was taught by an incredible principal who basically would say to me that this business, selling isn't about telling the client anything, it's asking them everything. And if you ask enough questions, you'll get enough answers, and those answers should let you know how best to serve these people moving forward. There's that word again, service, to a degree. So I got in, hearing that a lot of experienced agents were saying, oh, you should have been here a year ago. This is the worst time to get into it. This is the worst market I've ever seen. And I'm thinking, well, it's the best market I've ever seen. So I go and meet Simon, who I don't know. Hi, Simon. Rik Rushton's my name. This chance to have a chat today to see how best I can help you. It's not really about me or our company. It is about you, though, and what you're trying to achieve. So give me an understanding here. What are you trying to achieve with this move? And I'll let you know if I can even help you. Just that consultative, take away the authority of it and just have a chat. Because in them days, don't forget also, the consumer needed us to tell them what their house is worth, because they didn't really understand it. Nowadays, through very smart digital portals, like maybe someone may have once been involved in, that's part of this podcast, I'll sort of narrow it down to the initials, Simon Whale. The consumer knows probably pretty much what their house is worth within, £1,000, and they're getting us in to see if our opinion backs it up and is in alignment with their belief about it. So, the dialogue that tends to work well for me, I'm very much into, questioning first and foremost. So, if someone's, creating a market appraisal opportunity, whether I've generated it from my lead generation or prospecting, or whether I've met them, through a referral, or they've called in for a market appraisal, the first question I'm asking is, why have you chosen now to move? I mean, that just gives me their motivation pretty quickly. I'll also then ask them, what's most important to you? I'm sure there's lots of things about getting your home to the market and through the market. What would, if you just had to pick one, what would be the most important, do you think? As they answer that, they're probably telling me what they value a little bit. And if I then follow it up with, how soon did you want to get underway? They tend to give me a description about who they are as a person. So one of the things for me, Simon, is if I was in front of you, I'd be really picking up quite quickly, and I'd be very much using lots of gestures, and I'd be, thinking in a coffee sense, I would be, just thinking triple espresso. But for David, I would slow it down a bit like this, and I would bring him in, but very quietly, and I wouldn't use my hands as much as I would with you. I'd actually be more reserved. And so that's just something that you kind of learn fairly quickly, that, if a young child comes into a room, we get down at their level and we change our tonality, don't we? Hey, look at you, champ. If we're visiting someone selling their last home, we're very respectful, like going into our grandparents' house as children. We quieten down, we slow it down. We probably use a lot more auditory language because they grew up listening to the radio. When Bradman was scoring tons at the Oval back in the halcyon days of Australian cricket, they would have heard it on the radio. When Australia went to war, when the UK went to war, you would have heard it on the radio. When you're selling like my grandfather and grandmother's home, I would change tonality fairly quickly and change tack. So it gets down to that understanding that if everyone was the same, there'd be one TV station, one radio station, there'd be a 10 cinema complex in Manchester at the moment playing the exact same movie in 10 cinemas. But we know that doesn't happen. No. So people are different. There's different cars because people like to drive different ways. There's different everything. Human beings aren't the same. There's some things that connect us, but there's some things that separate us too. So part of my dialogue is to try and form a connection as quickly as I can. We know it's rapport that opens more doors. We know that the limits of our language are the limits of our world. So our ability to connect with people is really critical. So I start off asking a lot of questions, the why, what, how. That gives me a feeling about, how I can help them. But I'm also listening, Simon, for their patterns of language. What they're saying is telling me far more about how they say it is probably more important than the words they use. And I'll tend to align with them pretty quickly. And you're doing it well when they say, you know what, you've been very thorough. we just got a good feeling about you. We're going to go with you. That's interesting.
And Rik, you've actually proceduralized this, or from when I've seen you talk previously, you talk about the 4 distinct types of personality, don't you? The red, the yellow, the azure, and the blue. And I've seen similar kind of approaches there. And I'm absolutely fascinated by that, because I think we can all, when you talk about the different personality types, we all can pigeonhole people, maybe even ourselves, in those different elements. How important, I mean, maybe if you could just give a bit of an overview on that first, and then as a follow-up, I was just going to say is, how should you adjust your communications based on those personality types? Do you want to just give a little bit of an overview about those kind of those core elements there, though, first of all?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's a great question, because when I got my first job in real estate, I had to sit a psychological test. I think it was a Myers-Briggs test, and there's lots of them out there. There's the DISC profile. There's so many psychological testings to get a sense of, is this person congruent, who they are, what they say, and how they behave? Are they aligned? So those tests are way too hard to try and bring into play into a real estate sense. So I just found, if I could think about growing up, we had 4 TV channels. The power of 3 or 4 was pretty good for me, and I like the sense of, I'm a visual person, so I like the sense of colours. I mean, I don't know about pink, let's call it magenta for the sake of this, but I like putting people into colour patterns. So the first type I often hear and see a lot of is the red type personalities, which for me, reds are almost like red alert, very fast. They talk very, very fast. They're very strong people, typically business owners, directors, power seekers, got the right badge on the car. They talk very, very directly. They're very, very quick. And the thing for them is, if they're connecting with a real estate agent who is red like them, and they say, listen, this normally takes an hour, I've drilled it down to the best 25 minutes I can, still leaving you 5 minutes to ask me anything you like. So I've actually halved the time investment that a red type personality has to make with that, Simon. They love it. So red type personalities drive fast even when they're not in a hurry. You're in an elevator with a red type personality, because whatever floor they want, they keep on pushing it, thinking the harder I hit it, the quicker I get there. They typically, I don't know how graphic we're going to get here. It's a G-rated podcast, I'm sure, but for those that don't go into a male urinal, they're doing number ones and flushing at the same time. Like, they're very time conscious sort of people. So red type people love agents that are fast, short, sharp, to the point. And they go, look, here's what I've identified. Here's if we can get going. You've got a few things that need to shift your home from living condition to selling condition. I'm going to take care of that for you. Don't worry about it. Leave that to me. As soon as they hear that, that's music to their ears, and they're away. So red type personalities, their number one currency is time. Yeah. They love direct statement type stuff. I'm going to take care of this. This is when we're going to get underway. If you say something to them, they're going to own it, and they expect you to own it too. So that would be that one. Red type personalities hate yellows. Yellows are very gregarious people. A red type personality, when you meet them, they say, hi, I'm Rik, and they shake the hand. A yellow type personality doesn't say, hi, I'm Rik. They go, hi, how are you? Oh my God, that pink, I love it. Look at the background. They're very expressive. Think hairdressers, think sort of anyone in sales, very gregarious, very out there. You've been with them for 40 minutes and they go, what are we doing? The house, come on, let's go have a look. Like, they're very, physiology-wise, they're out there, and you really have to pick it up with them. Reds hate them because they just don't stay on track. So a yellow type agent going into a red type person is like, I love this. They go, we don't care. Just how much is it? So give me the whole thing. So yellows and reds kind of are they're kryptonite to the aqua type people. Very laid back, very conservative. I'm not saying David's that, but maybe could be, right? So very conservative. You're with an aqua type person because they don't speak, and really, unless there's a gap there and you invite them in. And so with them, I would slow it right down, and I would say, David, thanks so much for this opportunity today. You could have invited a number of agents, but the fact you've called us in, gee, Kerfuffle, we don't take that lightly or for granted. And so I really appreciate, that's the kind of pattern I would use. And they're into safety and security, and they want to feel safe. And the reason why they hate reds is because an aqua type person, Simon, will start saying something and a red will cut them off. It's like, so
that's the whole dynamic.
Yeah. So they'd say, so if we go to the market without a price, how will buyers know what to offer? Well, we tell them what to offer. Boom, away they go. This is a red agent. And so the aqua goes, oh, okay. And they just come on back. So you got to be careful there. But the ones I think we deal with the most are mum, dad, 2.5 children, the blue types. They're very linear, very process driven. They understand things really well. So you need to have a bit of pep in your step, but not too much. If you're going to do a report for them, you better have the dot the I's, cross the T's, and put a dot on the lowercase j. If you hand them a report, they'll probably hand it back to you with all the grammatical errors and stuff of that nature. They're very factual based, and they don't want to hear, oh, I think we can get this. Yellows love that. Oh, is that possible? Blues want to go, can you evidence that? Can you validate that? Is that something you can actually verify? Is 1 + 1 equals 2? Like, they're very process driven. So red's very fast, very quick, very direct. Yeah. If you can save them time, they love you. Yellows, if you can show a bit of emotion, just think triple espresso and lots of gregarious, big language. They don't say hi, they say hi. It almost just reels on. They're very gregarious and out there. Americans very yellow, in that respect. I think most of my UK friends are very conservative, so I'd say they're more blue and aqua, and you would tone it back, but still have some pep in your step, still have a bit of, tonality in your voice, but you'd be going more methodically. Blues love the word process. Here's the process that we'll talk about now. And so if you can adjust accordingly and get a sense of whether they're visual type people, so a lot of blues will say this: is there anything you can show us to evidence how we will secure 600,000 in the current market? So they're giving me linear language, but they also want visual. Is there anything you can show me?
So they need comparables. They need to be able to see the actual factual evidence you're talking about there, yeah?
Yeah, and if you go through an Excel spreadsheet with them or show them a case study, they love you. Yellows, you may as well you just go to a funeral home and wait, is the way they think about that. They just want to have fun. Oh, I think we can get that. Oh, we're going to get that. Yeah, we'll get that. Oh, good. They don't care how we get there. They don't care how the process works, because they just want to have fun and they want to engage with you and have a little bit of fun around that. The reds want to see the methodical plan, but they want to see the fast tracks, not stopping all stations. You don't want to say, well, working back from here, we're going to do this, and working back from here, we're going to, no, we want the express, mate. We want the express from, Manchester all the way into London, no stopping, no stations.
And they just want the bottom line. They don't want all the thing.
Yep. Price, fees, what's it going to cost me? What do I need to do? And how soon can you get underway? So it's that kind of situation.
What can you? Is there anything you can do? Is this something that you just have to be experienced, for example, when you turn up at the appraisal, or is there any way of almost pre-identifying what a personality type is and then amending your approach to that presentation beforehand? Can you glean that from a conversation previously, or what's your thoughts there?
Oh, 100% you can. And that's what I coach. I mean, I coach that dramatically. I can take rookies who have been in the business for a few days and give them this. And after a few minutes of doing it, they can actually, and I'll say to them, okay, let's jump out of the role play now. What, if you had to pick a personality, what personality was it? If you had to pick a color, what do you think it would be? What gave it away? And they'll give you some, once we know what we're looking for, we see everything, don't we? If we decide to buy a new car at the moment, once we make that decision to buy that vehicle, and we may even pick a colour and the make and the whole sort of thing, we now start seeing that car on every road we drive around in our town. We go down a dead-end road and we see that car. Was that car there before we decided to buy it? Answer, yes. Did we see it then? No. Why not? Because we're not looking for it. I don't think we're looking for this stuff until someone gives it to us in this sort of format, this sort of formality. So, what happens in many respects is that I explain to them in a role play, as you're hearing this, what's giving it away, as if it's a face-to-face sort of role playing room or over Zoom, is there any physiology cues that's giving it away? So there's cues to look for. It's a pattern of physiology, how they use their body, a pattern of language with the words that they use, and effectively the tonality of how they deliver it. And that's pretty much it. And I just found finding 3 or 4 ways to do it is pretty simple. The biggest challenge in this, they get so good at it, especially, people that have been in a few days, they go out against agents that have been doing it after a few decades and they win the listing. And the agents that have been doing it for a few decades go, how did that even, they don't even know it's happened. Yeah. But I think what's really good about that aspect of it, it just goes to show that if you understand the cues and you know what to look for, and you put the cook in the kitchen and let them bake, if you give them all the ingredients, they'll pretty much tell you how to fill out the listing agreement if you're really listening.
So Rick, can I ask you a question just to sort of distill all your collective knowledge on this and your years collating it and presenting it and perfecting it into just like one tiny point, simplifying it, is there a question that an estate agent could be asking of the client, say over the phone before they go to the listing meeting, that will tell, and the answer to that question will tell them what sort of a person they're likely to be meeting?
Oh, absolutely. Well, there's not one question, David, but there'd be a collection of modular questions you could ask that would really give you some pretty strong hints as to. So again, if I'm saying to somebody, can I ask why have you chosen now to move? And I'm listening to the answer's probably giving me the cues. So it can be anything from, well, I haven't chosen now, but the ex-wife solicitor has, so I guess I'm selling, right? So now here I'm hearing there's a pretty strong motivation for selling. We get that. And okay, so I'm sure based on that, there'd be lots of things that would be important. What would be most important to you? I guess that I was kept informed about what's going on all the way through. Okay, and when you say kept informed about how do you mean specifically? That you just called me after every inspection. So now they're auditory. And what would you like me to talk to you about in that? Just what the buyers thought on price? Or now I'm hearing some very blue linear language there. Okay, so you can pick it up if you know what you're looking for. But I think the 3 combination questions to ask is, why have you chosen now to move? There's not 33 answers there.
Yeah.
You know, it's, work's moving me south or north or overseas, or we've outgrown this. Who knows what the answer is, but they'll tell you. Why have you chosen now to move? Okay, knowing that you're about to make a move now, what's most important to you in getting your home ready? Or you can use that any way you like, David. What's most important to you in choosing an agent to represent you in the marketplace? What's most important to you in getting your home sold? Or you can be, especially with reds, you know it straight away because they're very fast over the phone. So they say, hello, this is David. David, Rik Rushton is my name. Look, I've just saw it come up pretty quickly. How soon can you get out here? We just want to know how, and you go, well, try decaf is what you want to tell them, but you know you can't. So you have to pick it up and you go, that's not who I am normally. Well, you have to speed it up. So the hardest ones, I think, though, David, is you might find over your qualifying over the phone, the husband's very red. Then you get out there and the wife is very aqua.
Yeah.
And you've got, oh my God, I've drilled this right down to just price, fees and the whole thing. And she's going to want to form some sort of a relationship and feel safe and secure. It's going to take some time. And you think, God, you two are exactly.
You've suddenly got this bipolar pitch then, haven't you? You're turning from side to side, trying to alternate between the approaches. Yeah.
Exactly. And you feel like you've just interviewed Sybil, because you just go, which personality am I talking to now? But, so when that happens, you're thinking to yourself, how did that happen? Clearly opposites attracted. She was pregnant and he wasn't. Like, it's unbelievable. How did that happen? But so there, it's almost like, so if the husband is Simon sort of bent, David, I'd say, so I've drilled this down. Here it is. Have a quick review of that. It's a précis, really. The whole document's so big, but here's just 5 bullet points you need to review over here. So talk to me, Marie. How do you feel about this movie?
Yeah.
Get a sense, and then start sort of pitching accordingly. And again, broadcasting on the frequency that she prefers, and then getting back onto he's heavy rock, he's heavy metal, she's subtle classic music, maybe even mood music, and you've got to really slow it down. So one of my favorite beliefs is that if we tune in before we broadcast, we've got a much better chance of forming a connection. And that's kind of the mantra. I think you mentioned earlier, the TEDx talk, Simon, that's the title to the TEDx talk, tune in before you broadcast. Yeah. We want to broadcast on Kerfuffle 101.1, but what happens if the prospect is tuned into 99.9? We miss them. Now, I'm an energized kind of bunny, and people look at me and go, he's a raging kind of, red, maybe an orange, really. He's a bit of yellow, a bit of red, but, you catch me on a Sunday afternoon after a week of, traveling, Zooming, being a husband, being a father and doing stuff. We just, after our 4th lockdown, we moved to our farm because we wanted to get out of the city and we wanted to have space. If you're going to be restricted to home, we'd rather be on 10 acres than not. I can tell you, I go very aqua at around about 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon in a daggy pair of tracksuits with, just so people aren't always their behaviors too, David. So you've got to be very careful there. So is there one question? No. Is there multiple questions? Yes. And if you continue to ask them, you'll get layers upon layers upon layers of information. And, sometimes an aqua person will change very red if they get a call from their school that their child's at saying the child's just had an accident at school. They're in an ambulance on the way to the local, hospital. I'm telling you, they jump in their Prius and they rev that thing out loud and they go. And if they come to a set of lights, now normally when they normally drive, if it's been green for a while, they start slowing down as they approach it. Well, not in this instance. They're zooming to get to the hospital. Now, if they get there and they find that their child is fine, we're just holding it for observation. And then 3 or 4 hours later, it's discharged. Guess what happens? They're buckled into their Prius nice and safe. They're driving home again very, very slowly. They're very cautious. People aren't always their behavior. Sometimes the circumstances changes their behavior a little bit too. But inherently, if you ask enough questions, you'll get enough answers to let you know which way you should be pitching to these people.
So you're not a slave to your personality type. It can be defined by different things. Is it fair to say then, from where you're coming from before as well, you're not just a case of you are just blue or you are just red. You can be kind of a 75% red personality with with that 25% element, or even more complicated, because as human beings, we are a little bit like that, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And I think this is not an exact science. So that's why I've never really, when I wrote about it in the book, and I've had a lot of people with, backgrounds in this area ring me and reach out to me and email and the whole thing and say, I actually like the way you compile it. It's probably going to be 80% of the time right. And I'm thinking, I'll take those odds. I'd rather go into a listing opportunity and have an 80% chance of getting it right than go in and because the number one feedback we're all given when we started in real estate, or any industry really, but typically the number one thing we're told is just be yourself. Well, that's wonderful. You'll connect with 2 people out of every 10 or 12 you meet with who are going to be just like you. Real estate's too hard a business to have a hit rate of 20%. So I'd rather flip that and get 8 out of 10 and know that sometimes I have to speed up, sometimes I have to slow it down. Sometimes I have to change inherently who I am with my DNA to be more aligned with the rapport that's required to get the listing. Now, a lot of people might see that as being disingenuous, unauthentic. I hear all that. But we always do things to make ourselves just a little bit more attractive to the people we're trying to influence. From Rexona is not an island off the Whitsundays. I mean, we wear underarm deodorant because we don't want to smell typically how we smell. I mean, when women specifically will say to me, I think it's deceptive. It's like, well, so is makeup. But if you want to show me your real face, no, that's that. But I feel like I should say that. You can have a bit of fun with this. But I think what it is, David, is it's trying to tune into who they are. Give yourself the best chance to pitch accordingly. Will it guarantee you the listing? No, but it gives you at least a chance to be in the race. And that's really all we're trying to do here. Just make ourselves as attractive as we can to the other party, to be in rapport and in engagement to then get the chance to represent them.
And are we all redeemable, or can we all do this? Because every now and again we all meet somebody who is just so bad at communicating with the outside world that you think there's just no way to reach them. And I've been to valuation pitches where you walk in the room and you just cannot get inside that, and it's over. And I believe that the valuers in that position, they panic. And they then tend to say more than they should. But so is everybody capable of this?
Oh, it's a learned skill like everything, really. No one comes out of the womb. I mean, sure, we've got some DNA gifts potentially, but none of this is something that cannot be learned, and they're all learned skills. So I think that's pretty easy. I think I knew I was on a winner when I went into a deceased estates sort of trustee sort of meeting. We had the lawyer representing the family, trustee. He was very, very much, Muffy, where's my smoking jacket? Very upper class, sort of wanted to know, what experience I had and the whole sort of thing. And then all the way through, there was the older sibling who didn't want to sell his parents who both passed away his property. He wanted to keep it for a while. The younger siblings who wanted to both sell it for different reasons. And I was just tuning into each one of them as best I could. And in the end, I said, can I just have maybe a discussion just with the family members? Which the lawyer said, oh no, that's not possible. So, well, I'm happy for you to be here too. But I just think what we need to be aware of here is that this is your parents' legacy. I understand, I directed Samuel, I understand you don't want to sell because you think your brother and sister are just looking for a quick, cash in, but they clearly are doing it, as I've now uncovered since asking what would they do with the proceeds. Well, your youngest brother wants to buy a better home that puts his young family into a better school zone. It's going to be better educational possibilities for his children. Your older sister wants to do it for her children who are going through what you would call public school, we call it private school over here. If mum and dad were here right now, I'm pretty sure if I asked you the answer to answer this question, what would they want to do with the legacy that they've created? Would they want to see their grandchildren in better schools, better education? You've lost mum and dad in the most recent times. Don't lose each other would be all I would say. And no lawyer's fee is worth you guys losing each other. So, which kind of was a backhander to the lawyer. In the end, I got that listing, and I don't say that for any other reason other than the fact that I was the only agent who could actually get them to go that way. Where else was just talking to the lawyer about fees and what they would bring to the table. So is it a learned skill? I believe it is. I think anything is possible. You've just got to be open to the opportunities to learn. And there's so much stuff out there now. I mean, just on your website with the blogs and all the interviews you've done, in our podcast, we've interviewed now everyone from gold medal winning athletes right through to a mum who can work out, a single mum who can work out which of her children get the last bicky in the bicky barrel. That's serious bloody negotiation. So all this stuff is learned if you want to seek it. And we can get it at the speed of click today. It's really great. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, you'd have to travel somewhere, or you'd listen to a cassette tape, and it was unbelievable what you had to do then. So I think, in summary, anyone can learn this stuff. It's not that hard. There's a bit of NLP in what I do, which is old technology. It's been around since the early 80s. There's a lot of sort of neuroscience that in what I do, but none of it requires you to wear a lab coat. None of it requires you to go into Oxford or Cambridge or anything. It requires you to have some curiosity about, hey, could I communicate better with different personality types? And, I think I can actually be a slight chameleon only because of the fact that I've learnt the skills.
And I think what you're highlighting here, though, Rick, as much as anything, isn't it, is, you're talking about becoming, going from good to great and everything else here. But there were some really basic bits of advice to just stop yourself being actually poor. And I would say most people are poor. One of the games we used to, I'm supposed to be a technology fan. And of course, I am a technology fan. But nothing frustrated me more than seeing people being slaved to that technology. When you phoned up an estate agent in the first conversation, we could tell which CRM product they were using, because you knew that's asking the name, that's the address field, and it's just running. It feels like your point before, going through a funeral parlor thing. Those empathetic questions that you're asking that really get the important stuff out do not come usually from a CRM package. And just engaging with somebody else like yourself you've only got so long to get them on the phone, haven't you, and get the key information. You've got to, work with yourself to get the best possible start for your team.
Yeah, and I think it's rapport that, as I said earlier, that opens more doors, and that starts from asking really genuine questions. And when someone's calling because they are going through a marital, they might not lead off with that. I mean, how often do we hear it? Can I ask why have you chosen now? So, we're just getting an idea for the market. And then you get around there and you find that half the clothes are out of the walk-in robe, and there's sort of pictures with people ripped out of them and stuff like that. So you know what's going on there. No one's going to say at the start of that, why have you chosen now to sell? Well, basically I'm a loser. My wife has left me. I've got no money. Like, they don't talk like that. They tend to sort of put up a bit of a barrier until they feel comfortable with you to share it. So, I tend to sort of have those discussions. When people are saying they're going through a divorce, I say, look, I'm not going to tell you I know how you feel. That's like someone with one arm being told by someone with two arms, I know how you feel. You don't know until you've had that right arm lopped off. All I do know is that we are time tested in helping people who have failed as husband and wife not fail as homeowners, failed as husband and wife, but not fail as parents. So we're time tested in that. So I'm looking forward to meeting you and seeing how best, if at all, I can even help you. So again, it's just that building rapport. And again, I'm a bit like you when I get called for stuff and I can hear them going through the field. And I know the field won't let them move forward until I give them something that they want. So I tend to play a few games like that. So that's really quite interesting. Yeah, exactly.
And other things in terms of practical things. If you are, once you're aware of these personality types, and I suppose we've all kind of seen this happening in terms of how news is delivered to us these days, you can actually affect the marketing you're doing, whether that's an email newsletter or any communique, by how many people you can have the full version, can't you? And then a précis version to appeal to those red personality types. And that's just a very simple and effective way to put people into the right bucket.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, obviously when we're out competing and it's a competitive industry, the agent who's got the more resources can be more resourceful. The agent who's more flexible in their approach is probably going to win more than they're going to lose. And, I think that your ability, and I tend to get kind of brought into organizations to help with their dialogue or their mindset. For me, I think the two are linked. As we think, we feel; as we feel, we act and speak. So my view is it shouldn't be about us. It's not really about us here at Kerfuffle Real Estate. It's about you guys and what you're trying to achieve. Give me another, what are you trying to achieve here? And just have a conversation like that. And then you're going to let them talk. And it's almost like where most agents go in and try and guess a lot of this stuff. I just think if you just ask the questions, take the guesswork out of it, for goodness sake, it's not that hard. And you're right. It's having, the multiple ways of going. Print media over here has been sort of on the decline for so long now. Yet, I used to love going in and getting print media, and people say, why would you even do that? Because there's still some people that still believe that if they can see their home in the print media, that it's going to stand out. So why don't we just give them what they want? But you get better value if you go online. Says who? What happens if the one buyer is going to, oh, we can't sell that? Well, that's probably more the answer. It's in your mindset, not your inability to dialogue. I can give you dialogue that will help you sell ads and get print media. Don't you worry about that. Or how do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple. You see someone who's wearing a watch and you go, I see you're wearing a watch. Yeah, that's right. Well, why would you wear a watch when the time is on your phone? Oh, well, I like to look at my watch. I know. And there's still some people that like to lick through the paper and have a look on a weekend too. So we want to attract that. What if that one buyer is going to pay you the premium price? Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't think about that. So we think that's well worth an extra. Yeah, you got to make up the money for your market, but we would say that we think it's worth an extra $1,000 that may get a buyer that pays you 10,000 more. So, dialogue's one part of it. That's really the end result of how you think about this stuff first and foremost, Simon.
Great. And I thought one of the most powerful statements I saw from when I've heard you talk and everything else is, I think I might, if I don't paraphrase it, you said the quality of our lives is determined by our connections. That's such an interesting, obviously, and it makes absolute sense to me. My approach has always been to, trying to connect wherever possible, and obviously trying to do that. What can you practically do to try and double down on that?
Are you saying that the value of your life increased infinitely the day that we connected, Simon?
Again, as my business married partner, that's absolutely true. Thank you.
Well, what I'm hearing there, David, is maybe your life didn't infinitely improve, but your therapist's bank account did. So, it's just, in all seriousness, though, that is my driving fundamental belief is that there are no successful hermits. I've tried real hard, but I can't get around anyone who's ever made it on their own without the help of others. So success, I believe, is not a solo performance. So if you can improve the quality of your connection, you're going to improve the quality of your life by default. And they don't have to be rich and famous. They can just be people that, have magic with their children. I think that's an important aspect to look at it as well. So if you can get connected and get alignment with people, they're going to work with you, not at you. I think that's got to be a smart, clever sort of way of getting through the game of life. I said earlier that I love going to conferences, partly for the education. And I don't drink alcohol and I don't try for extracurricular activities at night time. I do hard drugs though, so I don't know what they're like in the UK when you go to a conference, but no, I'm only joking. Don't even do that. I think my wife can't even get me to
Did you notice how
I thought that was just a rumor. That's just a rumor, right?
No. Well, it sounds like a rumor. But what I will tell you is in a conference early doors, probably in the very early 1990s, I had a great quote that said the end result of your net worth will be directly linked to your network, i.e. who you're around and collaborate with is going to be fundamentally important. Now, economically, you could say that, but I've got people that are around me that, they probably don't do that well economically, but God, they make me laugh and we have a lot of fun times and we need that. We need to fill up our cup with other things other than, this is a challenging business. This is a tough business. If you can get around someone who's got a great laugh and makes you laugh and we have a bit of stick and we, as you guys would call it over there, I love hanging out with Tommy Panos for a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, and I try and sort of wherever I can, engage with his laugh because I think he's got one of those real powerful sort of laughs. And, so I think the message here ultimately is that, real estate is a great vehicle to allow you to connect with other people. And goodness knows if you do it well, you have raving fans just directing traffic to you. It's pretty exciting.
We almost got Tom Panos on TikTok, didn't we, David? I think if we put at the end of the video, we could have encouraged him to do it.
You know what? I think the world is a better place without Tom Panos on TikTok. I honestly think that, when you hold your heroes up here, sometimes TikTok is not the way you want to see them fall.
I know you've never been able to look at me in the same way. Rik, look, I know you spoke about your obviously the TED talk, and you're on there. You talk about how how brutal they are in timing, in terms of it's 17 minutes and that's it. You've been really, really kind with your time. I know it's really, really late over there. We'd love to catch up with you in the weeks and months ahead. I'm going to just suggest a few things. I've certainly learned a whole lot else about it. I'm going to say, can people please, if they are interested, go and have a look at that TED talk. What was the title of it again, just so people can find it? Obviously,
well, I'm going to make life easy for people. If they go to www.rikrushton.com, on that website you'll find an immense amount of information.
That's great.
But there's also a section over there with downloadables where Rik is basically giving it away for free. But there's some really useful resources there. And there's direct links to all of Rik's talks and access to all 75 of the podcast episodes. And each one of them is a gem. I'm halfway through one with Bob Wolf at the moment. And yeah, you talk to some real legends.
Well done, David.
Yeah, we do.
That's why we're such a beautiful couple there. There was me just blurting ahead, and you've already thought this detail through. Well, say hello to your version of David Mintz, Peter Kakos, from me as well. Big Liverpool fan, got a lot of time for Peter over there as well. And we'd love to catch up with you in the months ahead, Rik. But for today, thank you very much.
My absolute pleasure, and here's to everyone's continued success. And despite the Liverpoolians there, go England. Come on, England. Come on, England. I think it's all I say.
Excellent. Thanks, Rik.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Rik. That's absolutely perfect. Thank you very much.
Cheers, boys.
And Jenny, honestly, I could have gone on for hours, but it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair on you.
No, that's okay. I'm happy to jump on any time. You just let me know if there's a slot you want filled. We can have a bit of fun with it, and we should get you on ours. I think we've got at the minute a guy over here who started a media company called Croc Media. Oh, yeah. And he's got the rights now for the AFL. He's got all these. It's like a $200 million sort of business, and just an intriguing cat. He doesn't plan. He doesn't jot down stuff. He doesn't have goals. But again, a million guys could do it his way and not find success. He's just the one in the million who can do it.
That sounds familiar to you, David, all apart from the 200 million.
Yeah. It's what I've always said about you, Simon. 99% of it's luck,
Yeah. Well, that was Napoleon, wasn't it? Napoleon said he wanted his generals lucky rather than brilliant. I'll have that.
That's it. I think that's very, very right. But if we get Jurgen Klopp before you, you'll know that came from Kakos, not me. That is outrageous.
And what we'll do, Rik, as well, is we've got a key influencer part on our page. We'd love to set that up with you over there and link off to your website and everything else. So that's the least we can do.
My pleasure, boys. All the best. Be safe. Be well.
Exactly right. Well, we'll look forward. I can't wait to be getting over there, but you're locked down for a bit longer, aren't you?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's going to be any travel for. We've got, I think, 6-7% of the population vaccinated. So we've got about 63%. They're saying 70% before they can really see there being freedom to move. So it'll be interesting to see how that one rock and rolls at some stage. That's for sure. So hopefully I can get over there, but we'll see you when you're over here next for sure.
Well, certainly let us know if you're over there. We can certainly help out with some between us and I'm sure our arch enemies, the Estate Agency Podcast. We can find some stuff. We were talking. Funny enough, I don't know if you know him, Doug Driscoll over at Star Partners. He's coming over to do it. He's doing it blatantly to find a way to get home to his English relatives. But we're going to set up a few talks and things here. So we'd love to catch up with you if that's on your agenda.
you know him as Doug Driscoll. I call him Sir Douglas. Lovely man, great man.
Yeah, but that's
Sir
they all
and,
sound they all sound posh over there to you. To us, he just sounds like what's it? He sounds he sounds like Arthur Daly. I've just used probably the most English reference of all. Who's a good cheap person over there?
No, I think I get that reference. It's like, hey, Ricky, come over here, mate. What are you doing over here?
Ricky, yeah, that's good. Your English not is good.
Like, he's got that sort of really posh stuff when you hear him talking to his team and he introduces me, and then I'll say, okay, great. And then we'll go to dinner. He's got something in him of alcohol nature, and his voice changes somewhat. Is all I'll say.
To be fair, he's English, so he's going to have that kind of alcoholic bit going through him.
Yeah. But his ability to, just sort of drop the F-bomb. It's like if someone's ripped the vinyl needle across the record and goes, look, that's just not what I normally think of you. It's
Rik,
crazy, but pleasure, boys. Be safe.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Cheers. Have a great night. Cheers. Bye-bye.
You too. Yeah, bye. Bye.